Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for non-boxing picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, longtime viewers here online know that I consider Terence Crawford to be a masterpiece boxer, right? He is masterful. He's exactly the kind of guy I like. He has a learning curve. He spends the first few rounds figuring you out. Then he literally changes his game. He makes the adjustments to dominate you. Now, I view him as even more complicated than Floyd Mayweather, right? Because Crawford has a right-handed game like Mayweather. Then he has a left-handed game, right? Something Mayweather doesn't have. Crawford will literally go into a southpaw stance. And what's interesting with Crawford is it's seamless. In other words, when he's in a southpaw stance, he has a jab. He can lead with power punches. He has his balance. It's all together, right? This is a guy who, quite frankly, has spent years working on his game. He's one of the most advanced fighters out there. Now, let me say this. You know, I looked at the top rank feed for his fight against Dwyer, and it's a masterpiece fight. Crawford starts out the fight right-handed. Then Crawford shifts to southpaw. It's as a southpaw, staying in the pocket, right? Not on his back foot. He's actually on his front foot. In fact, if you look at his feet early in the fight, you're actually going to see when he shifts and starts going flat-footed. It's Crawford flat-footed from a southpaw stance that takes out Dwyer, who had only lost to Lamont Peterson. Now, before I go further, let me just say about Top Rank. I haven't heard a lot of boxing broadcasts with female commentators. I thought the female commentator was excellent. I thought she was on the top of her game. We need to see more female commentators in boxing. Understand, boxing has an active women's boxing side to it, right? There's also no reason, since most of the commentators in the sport haven't put on gloves, that a woman who hasn't put on gloves can't be an excellent boxing commentator, right? She brings a lot of perspective. Unfortunately, I don't know who it was, but she was excellent. She brings a lot of perspective that the guy simply missed. It's the female announcer who notes that Dwyer went to the wrong corner at the end of a round. It's the female commentator who notes that Dwyer admitted to the production team that he had only stopped drinking a month before losing to Lamont Peterson, right? I'm hoping HBO, Showtime, all of these other outfits that broadcast fights are a little bit more inclusive and realize that in a sport where you've had, right, for years, female judges, Julie Letterman, and stuff like that, it's about time we get female play-by-play announcers, right? Thumbs up to Top Rank on that. Now, let me say this. As masterful as Terence Crawford is in deconstructing an opponent, right, it's the wrong style against Manny Pacquiao. Floyd Mayweather, who does less than Crawford in the ring, right, is better suited against Pacquiao because Mayweather is a little bit faster than Terence Crawford. Crawford's a deconstructionist. But you'll notice early in the Dwyer fight that Jean's actually faster than Terence Crawford. Right? Now, Mayweather, excellent technique, great defensive fighter, right? One of the best defensive fighters we've seen. But Mayweather also has cat-quick reflexes. In other words, that Mayweather lead left hook is faster, in my opinion, than any punch that Terence Crawford throws. Mayweather also is a little bit more mobile than Crawford, a little bit more creative than Crawford. So when Manny Pacquiao comes forward, Floyd Mayweather is able to go backwards, right? While, setting up traps and stuff like that. Crawford's a little bit different. I know Crawford has a back foot game, but it's not as cat quick as Floyd Mayweather's game. Right? Crawford also, because he's doing so much, I don't think he has the, how do I put it, experience that one Manuel Marquez has in figuring out how to tame Manny Pacquiao. Right? I don't think Manny Pacquiao, who's a fast starter, who's a big puncher. I've heard from YouTube Nation. I know YouTube Nation has said, hey, he didn't knock out, guys like Brandon Rios. He didn't knock out Timothy Bradley. Right? All I can say is, he didn't knock down Floyd Mayweather. All I could say is tell all of that to Chris Algieri. I know Shane Mosley went the distance. Understand, Shane Mosley had to get off the canvas to go the distance against Manny Pacquiao. Keep in mind, too, a Pacquiao-Crawford fight's being discussed at 140. Pacquiao has an outsized punch. The lower in weight you go, the bigger that punch gets relative to the division. So I feel Manny Pacquiao would come in the first few rounds and wouldn't give Crawford an opportunity to deconstruct him. Right? Everyone has, some idea of what they want to do in the batter's box. When you go up against a guy throwing 100 miles an hour, you don't have time to think. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to take this pitch to the opposite field. You just don't have time. Speed kills. If Manny Pacquiao, and it's a big if, because Pacquiao's recently had surgery, but if Manny Pacquiao is still prime Manny Pacquiao, and don't be fooled by the dampening of his speed against Floyd Mayweather. Let's face it, Mayweather has spent his career dampening guys' speeds. Right? You can't look at a fighter against a Mayweather or a Bernard Hopkins and then think, oh, that's how the guy usually is. No, that's how the guy is against those opponents. We know Manny Pacquiao still has hand speed, right? Just look at the Chris Algieri fight, which is a recent fight. So just like Algieri didn't have an opportunity to dissect his opponent, right? And keep in mind, that's what guys with jabs use the jab for, right? They're jabbing you, they're figuring out things. Here, for this fight, the announcers tell you, look, Crawford, slow starter, he uses the first round on feints and stuff like that. Understand, Manny Pacquiao is going to run red lights. He's going to run through your feints. Right? It takes a unique fighter, very unique fighter, to be able to deal with an aggressive, hard-hitting, fast opponent like Pacquiao who's going to run red lights. The other problem, too, is Crawford's 5'8", right? Pacquiao is shorter than Crawford, and Pacquiao knows how to come in bent over, right? It's a Mike Tyson type skill. Now, don't be confused by this Dwyer fight. I know Jean's shorter than Terence Crawford, but Jean's on his back foot, isn't he? Jean is really waiting to counter, right? Manny Pacquiao can lead. It's a different experience. In other words, Terence Crawford just won a fight going 55 miles an hour, right? Manny Pacquiao's like the Autobahn. You're dealing with an opponent going 90 miles an hour. My question to you is whether Crawford, who's a master chess player, a master thinker, is going to have time to think against Manny Pacquiao. If that fight gets announced soon, and if these guys are going to fight, let's say, within the next 6 months, right, I'm going to take Manny Pacquiao against Terence Crawford, right? Pacquiao has been in huge fights, in huge venues. I'm guessing a fight against Crawford wouldn't take place in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm guessing Crawford wouldn't be able to be at his house the night before the fight and then, just travel to the arena when he's ready, right? I'm guessing it would be a Vegas fight, maybe a Macau fight, who knows? But I'm guessing it'd be a Vegas fight or a Madison Square Garden fight in front of a huge crowd, the kind of crowd that Manny Pacquiao is accustomed to. A pay-per-view event, the kind of pay-per-view event that Manny Pacquiao is accustomed to. Right? Understand, Pacquiao isn't going to be in the ring waiting to see what Crawford does like Jerry Jean was. Right? Pacquiao's going to come in, and Pacquiao's attitude's going to be, hey, I'm going to set the pace in this fight. Right? Not a lot of mystery to Pacquiao. You know it's a great, long, straight left hand, and you know it's a right hook up close. Right? You know he really can't land that right hook from distance. Right? You know his left hand is straight. He really can't curve it. Right? Everyone knows that. Just like I know when I'm in against a fastball pitcher, it's going to be a fastball, right? Everyone knew Mariano Rivera was going to throw a split-fingered fastball. Understand, the genius of Terence Crawford is in figuring out what you're going to do. With Pacquiao, it's a different dynamic. You know what he's going to do. Right? So Crawford would be in there trying to handle the speed, the angles, the awkwardness of Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's not going to be worried about what Terence Crawford's going to do because Pacquiao understands his speed gives him carte blanche early against guys unprepared for it. Understand the way the fight could well go. It could go like the Shane Mosley fight. Shane Mosley has a lot of hand speed. Right? Manny Pacquiao comes in, he's on his front foot. Right? He hits you a couple of times. You get dazed and confused. You say, whoa, you know what? I can't be in front of this guy. This guy hits like a locomotive. Look up quotes of Shane Mosley following the Manny Pacquiao fight. Right? Mosley at the time thought he'd never been hit harder in his life. Right? If Terence Crawford tastes Manny Pacquiao's power early, that might put him on his back foot. You know where Pacquiao's going to be? He's going to be on his front foot. Right? I think the public has devalued Pacquiao a bit because Pacquiao just lost to a masterful Floyd Mayweather. Folks, everyone loses to Mayweather in the weight class, right? That's why Floyd's unbeaten. Pacquiao's still dangerous. If you doubt it, just look at the speed against Chris Algieri. I know Algieri switched trainers, right? Okay, fair enough. He's with John David Jackson now, right? I know the current Algieri is not the Algieri who hopped in the ring against Manny Pacquiao. Just keep in mind that that Algieri-Pacquiao fight was fought at a heavier weight, 143.5, than the Pacquiao-Terence Crawford fight would be fought at. Right? Just keep in mind, Pacquiao's punch was still there. Algieri gets rocked several times. Now, Algieri just fought an offensively gifted Amir Khan. He never goes down in that fight. He never looks remotely as buzzed, as hurt, as he was in the Pacquiao fight. There's one time in that Pacquiao fight that Algieri's so hurt, he barely beats the count. It's a miracle that the referee allowed that fight to continue. Now, what happens if Manny Pacquiao fights Terence Crawford and starts landing home runs early? I'm telling you, a lot of Crawford's mastery, and he's an unbeaten fighter, would go out the window. Right? Just food for thought. So, Manny Pacquiao, I understand he only wants to fight one more time. Let me just say, in boxing, we've heard that before, right? Many of you are wondering if Floyd's serious about his retirement. If he is, that'd be a bit novel. Right? Because I'm accustomed to hearing Larry Holmes say, that's it for me. Then I see Larry back in the ring. Right? So, Pacquiao is still a world-class fighter, as I said in an earlier video. If I were Pacquiao, I quite frankly would try to fight other guys, Canelo, right? Simply because bigger name, bigger weight class, right? And I think Pacquiao would have an even more decided hand speed advantage in that fight than against Terence Crawford. Right to the Crawford crowd. Trust me, I know this guy is one of the very best in the sport. But styles make fights. Pacquiao's speed should not be underestimated. That great jab you're seeing Crawford land on Dwyer, nobody lands jabs like that on Manny Pacquiao. Nobody. Right? Pacquiao, shorter guy, elusive, knows how to leverage his height, knows how to duck under, is very cat quick. A lot of what Crawford's bringing to the table, he wouldn't be able to do against Manny Pacquiao. Against Dwyer, Crawford has the time in the first round to literally figure out, okay, my orthodox stance is not quite working. Let me go shift to a southpaw stance. Then he figures out, after the shift, hey, I could lead with some power shots. Do you really think against Manny Pacquiao you're in the ring with time to think like that? No. Pacquiao's bobbing and weaving. Suddenly he's up on you. You're getting hit with some punch. Pacquiao throws that left hand sometimes from down here, right? It's a little bit outside of the frame. You taste power, right? The shorter guy is in there trying to take you out. Many of these bigger guys, it takes them a while to realize the other guy's the power puncher in the fight. Suddenly you're on your back foot and, as Brandon Rios found out, one of the best chins in boxing. Manny Pacquiao's jumping all over the place. You're dealing with hand speed, and while you're trying to block the shot, suddenly he's over here. Right? Keep in mind, too, it's when he's right up on you that suddenly Pacquiao becomes a two-handed fighter. Right? Don't be deceived by the optical illusion of Pacquiao against a Marquez or a Floyd Mayweather. Those are masterful Hall of Fame fighters. Don't be confused by the fact that Brandon Rios gets hit on the chin and is still standing there. That's one of the best chins in boxing. Right? Let's get real. Against most guys, right? They're feeling the power. Right? They're not just getting hit and then standing there. No. They're feeling power shots. I'm leaning Pacquiao over Crawford. Let me hear from you, YouTube Nation. I understand Crawford is unbeaten. I concede his fight against Dwyer is a masterpiece. It is a must-see. Crawford looks brilliant in that fight. I concede he's one of boxing's very best fighters. I'll concede he's in his prime. People here know I took him against Yorkie's Gamboa when that was a little bit of a controversial pick, right? I have the utmost respect for Terence Crawford. I just think a patient guy. And look at Crawford. The people around him have a lot of energy. Crawford's low-key, isn't he? Right? If he were a musician, he'd be the cool guy in the band, wouldn't he? Right? I mean, this is probably how Crawford talks in his normal life, right? His nickname is Bud. He's not trying to be, Mr. Personality and stuff like that. This is a guy in the opening rounds where the bullets are flying and he's calm. He's figuring it out. Right? He's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to shift to southpaw. You know what? This jab seems to be working. Let me try to throw hooks off the jab. You don't have that smoothness. Right? Works at a jazz station. Right? Doesn't work that well when you're in against some of the fastest hands in the sport. Right? Think about it. If I asked you to name the fastest hands in the sport, right? Gary Russell belongs on any list. Manny Pacquiao belongs on any list. Right? You know the rest. Crawford shows up. He's like, hey, what am I going to do? Suddenly, here's Manny Pacquiao. Right? You're looking for him. Right? Let's say you're the guy who needs to, even the score after you've been hit. And then, like Brandon Rios, you're looking around the ring for him. Right? Because the shorter guy is bouncing around. Worse yet, the shorter guy has a cannon. Right? That left hand is lethal. I'm leaning Manny Pacquiao against Terence Crawford. As I said in an earlier video, if I were Pacquiao, though, I'd fight Adrian Broner, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, Saul Alvarez, before I fought Terence Crawford. Classic fight. We'll see what Pacquiao does. He holds a lot of cards. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.